So here my third and last seminar. I was, agreed with Janis rather. I would try to give some presentation on something about preaching, congregation preaching from Bhaktivinoda Thakur and up to the latest 21st century worldwide Bhakti preaching. Something like that, wasn't it? And it's actually, anyway, I thought actually that, by coming to Ireland, if nothing else, if I can at least inspire someone to look into the Bhakti program, which is now going on in many parts of the world. It's probably the most dynamic preaching program taking place right now, at least in my visibility of some views.
We have one here also.
Also here, that's what we have. Yeah, we started here. And it's it's a very inspiring, fascinating, powerful, and simple program that, from what I can tell, can be applied anywhere and can give the preaching dynamic to the Krishna consciousness movement, which some feel that they've been lacking some places for some time and so on. This is my conviction. I've been involved with this actually since the middle of the 1990s. You may remember, how members, you all know this book here?
I've seen it.
Yeah. It was published in '96 for Prabhupada's centennial, and I was actually involved in writing the book. I didn't write it, but I was involved with the devotee who wrote it, and he was actually discussing the book, day by day, week by week, presenting what he had written. So I got to know about this about more than 17 years ago, and I was immediately fascinated by this approach to preaching and developing the Krishna consciousness movement, which, from what I can see, could cross the borders, which we often the Krishna consciousness movement used to be, and often also see as something very limited for a few devotees who can practice Krishna consciousness in a temple environment on full time, and the rest are more or less somehow, even though they're devotees, they more or less are reserved a quite passive role where they can come from festivals and Sunday programs and passively listen to a lecture and give a donation and take some prasadam and go back home. But actually this program has a different approach, and it's a program that can involve everyone in all spheres of life in very dynamic and active preaching without having to change anything in one's lifestyle. Except giving up sinful activities, of course, but one doesn't have to change. One can stay where one is and be fully engaged in preaching and ecstatic practice of Krishna consciousness. So I thought this has really great perspectives, and it has been seen like that. I'm going to get to that. What I'm talking about is something that is not actually new, something that is actually part of our Sampradaya. And we know at least, as far as I can gather, similar programs and kind of preaching programs were also practiced and developed even by the 6 Goswamis and 10 Goswami, and probably like Shyamananda, what was his disciple? Rajikananda, and so on. But at least we know Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he developed the Namahata program on a very, very large scale. So much so that the whole Bengal was affected by that. He's supposed to have something like 50,000 people involved in practicing, really dynamic Krishna consciousness and preaching, and it was very ecstatic. He had something like 500 groups organized, with probably around 100 in every group, centered around in villages all over Bengal. And the descriptions of Bhaktivinoda Thakur when he was traveling around, and he's just writing, well, it's just ecstatic, just so blissful to come and be part of these dynamic programs. And then later on, if you come up to present day, because actually Bhaktivinoda Saraswati had a slightly different approach. He focused very much on sannyasis and brahmacharis and temples, and that was also, for particular reasons. And so he had the Gaudiya Math, and that's, of course, not only reaches out into temples, but he also reaches into the greater society. But he had a different approach than his father had. So also similar attempts have been undertaken all these years to develop similar programs to what Bhaktivinoda Thakur developed in the 1800s. And but then in the like in around 90s, around 1990, devotees started noticing that in other religions, such as certain Christian sects, were practicing or following a program which is called the Cell program, which actually was extremely interesting. Something like what Dr. Thakur had done also. And was seeing that those Christian groups that had such programs, they were flourishing. All other Christian churches, their church were empty, and the whole, the Christianity was just on the decline. Nobody was interested. But not those who were having cell programs. They were expanding like anything. For example, I know there is in South Korea, there was one Christian priest who had and still has, if he's still living, but the program is at least is going on. He started a very successful Christian cell program in South Korea. So much so that even this is a Buddhist country. Now it's practically become Christian. I mean, if you go on the top rooftops in Seoul, is that the name of the capital, Seoul? You can see crosses on the rooftops everywhere. And that's because there was someone who was practicing, conducting a big cell program. So devotees started saying, we have to do something similar also. But actually also because what was the cell program? The cell program was a program that was based on small groups of Christians meeting, a group meeting for like once a week, and then they have a structured program where they meet, they discuss some of their whatever philosophy they have. And then they, I guess also they sing some hymns and they do some praying, or I haven't been to any of those, but they do something like that. And then they talk about preaching. How can we get more to join this group of ours? And then they encourage each other. Let's go out and get more to join. And then they go on with a program like this. And then the leader. He's conducting the program, training the participants in whatever Christian philosophy was there, and also training whoever has the capacity to be competent to lead a new group, to take over and become a leader of a group. That is very much the focus of the leader. He has to find someone or even more who can themselves lead groups. And then after, and they had, so they just had that half a year around. Then after half a year they had trained someone who could lead a group also. So then suddenly you had two leaders, so then you had two groups. And then they could have, and then after another half a year they could have four groups, and like that. And then they would actually multiply very, very fast. And they did. In some places they multiplied very, very fast. So devotees started saying this is something we have to also start practicing. It's very effective, very powerful, and it's also very simple. It doesn't demand any huge buildings, investments, or anything like that. It's just you just get together with people where you are in your house, in your apartment, and like that, and do your thing. That's all. And then actually Lalitanath Swami, he commissioned, I don't know how many of you remember Ajahn, who was also here in London for some time, commissioned Ajahn to research what that program was, and to write about it and Krishnaize this program. And he was living in Copenhagen at that time, and that's why I also followed it very, very close with what he was doing. And the result was, I say, this book here came out as, and also I mean, actually, Ajay's name is not on as the author for some personal reasons, but he was the main author, and also the term Bhakti Riksha actually, as far as I remember, was something that he coined. He coined the term Bhakti Riksha. Of course, it's a term from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In that sense, it's not a complete concoction. There is the chapter, 8th chapter, 9th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita about Lord Chaitanya as a tree of devotional service, as the Bhakti Riksha. Bhakti Riksha means the tree of devotional service, where it's described, and this is actually a chapter which describes the mission of Lord Chaitanya, how he wants to spread Krishna consciousness all over the whole world. And he wants to be like a tree, like a solid trunk, and then with branches that grow and divide and become, and gradually encircle the whole earth, the whole planet. That's the vision given there in this 8th and 9th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Ajay one night, I think he had a dream or something like that. I think it was in the morning he told it. I can't remember he told about it. Isn't that a good name for this program, Bhakti Riksha? It was called a cell program amongst the Christians because you have cells and they divide. You have one cell, they divide to become 2 cells, and then they divide to become 4 cells, like that. So, but also a tree. There's one branch and it divides, becomes 2 branches, and then it divides, become 4 branches. So Bhakti Riksha, this is precisely the name for this program. And so that's how we got the name, how it was given the name. Why not Namhata? One might ask. Bhaktivinoda Thakur used the Namhata program, or had the name Namhata. And one reason is that the Namhata that was developed also in ISKCON under Jayapataka Swami and others up especially in the 80s, is a little different program. It's more like something like a temple lecture in a home. It's not so structured. It's and that name has already been used for that, even though it seems that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had actually somewhat more structured program, but that was the Namhata developed in ISKCON is a little more, it's like not only informal, but it's like you make a whole program and you invite people to come, and there's a kirtan and bhajan, and there's a lecture, and people can ask some questions after the lecture, and then after that, some prasadam, and then they can really have it every week, and the same people come, and the same one who gives lecture, and in this way, it's a very fantastic program, but it's not as dynamic as the original Namhata and as the Bhakti Riksha cell program actually is when it's really structured correctly. So it was given the name Bhakti Riksha. I know Jayapataka Swami was protesting a little bit, but I think anyway, then he finally was convinced and he thought this is a good name. So then devotees started trying to implement this program from the middle of the 90s, and it has been going on ever since. We tried in Denmark a little around 99, but didn't really get it going as it's supposed to be, because there are many elements. There are a number of elements to the program, and they actually all need to be in place for it really to happen. And also one thing that is very much needed, and it's a qualification that my wife and I did not have fully, which is to be very stable in their situation, in one situation. That's one qualification. In order to have such a program, it has to be led by someone who is going to stay in that house, or in that town or village for the next 25 years or something like that. I mean, 5 years, or but don't don't start a program and then 2 months after you go somewhere else, or 5 months after there, and after 1 year you even divorce, or the whole we need stable devotees, someone whose situation is stable for a good period. And so that's also, and at that time we were a wife and we didn't have a place to stay. We had an apartment for a while, and then we had to get another apartment. Then we got, and so we were not really able to get it going. So that's one point. It takes stable people. But other parts in the world, well, actually they were devotees, stable devotees, who really also dedicated themselves to it. Actually, it turned out they got fabulous success with this program. I don't know how many are aware of that, but the most successful of these of the Bhakti programs, and actually the program that is being copied now today all over ISKCON, was developed in a secret place on this planet somewhere in the Middle East. Are you all familiar with that program?
Never heard.
You never heard of it?
No.
Never heard about it. So anyway, it's in a Muslim country. Since it's been recorded, I cannot say the name. The name is Mathura based, that's a cover name. But it's one of the countries there. One couple, Vijay Venugopal and his wife, Prema Padmini, started, they had congregation programs already in the 90s and 96. They started practicing Bhakti Riksha. And they developed an amazing program. They have, and they're preaching only among Indians, but there are many Indians who come and work there, stay there for some number of years. And also the thing is that actually these are not, they only stay for some number of years, so even though they make many devotees, many also leave. So, but they actually have constantly, also this very moment, there's something like 4,500 practicing devotees in that city. In one city, plus all over the Gulf area, there are thousands of devotees. Actually, Krishna consciousness is very, very big amongst the Indian community in the Gulf area, in Dubai, and places like that. But again, they cannot preach to Muslims. It's only amongst the Indians. But they, and even if it had not been a Muslim country, they would have been even more, still 4,500, devotees on a level of initiated devotees, 16 rounds, following the principles, living full-time devotees, preaching. It's not bad. It's pretty good. And they developed a very complete, they had complete material and programs. Others are now copying around in the world. This couple now they moved back to India now, and they have started programs, similar groups in India. Bangalore, they have quite many groups. In Calcutta and Delhi, they have quite many groups. Not so much in Mumbai, because in Mumbai you had a Chowpatty program, which is also, following some of the same. There's some differences, but actually they are, to a large degree, they're also doing very much something similar. In Russia, they have more than 300 groups right now, expanding, increasing every year. Moscow alone is more than 60. They have these big festivals on the Black Sea every year. That's actually Bhakti Victor program that is running that. And also there are different parts of the world, and I got in touch a little over about a year and a half ago. We got a visit from London by one young Indian man who had been cultivated by a program there. They started there, so I got to know they were actually. It turned out one young Indian couple who were working and living as a permanent residents in London, and they actually originally from Madras or Chennai, where they had been part of the program, and when they came to London, they wanted to start something there. So they started there 3 years ago, just these two, without any help from any of the established temples, Bhakjan Manor or Soho Street like that. Actually, even some of the devotees, other devotees, or thought actually, no, this is not really, at least I think they get encouragement from there. Now they get encouragement, and HG Prabhu is really so much behind it now. Because actually what has happened, these two devotees, they have gone from just being beasts themselves, and now they have brought up something like 200 devotees up to the level of initiation standard. Preaching. And they have like, they have something like 10 groups practicing. So I've seen this, also in 3 years, if you can, with some dedication, you can actually cultivate something like 200 from zero to become devotees. Then it's quite an effective program. It's quite an effective program. And when I was informed of that, then I went over to London to speak with them and see what they were doing actually. And spent a couple of days, had a lot of talk with this couple whose names are Aravinda Krishna Das and Yamuneswara Devi Das, and they're both disciples of Japatak Swami. And just saw what they were doing. It's really nice. There's such an enthusiastic atmosphere. They live in the same, they cultivate people in the same area. Of course, London has many Indians. It's like, this area is more like being in Delhi or Mumbai than being in London. I mean, to see white people is rare in certain parts of London. And but there, many large degree of those, they are cultivated living in the same neighborhood within walking distance. So actually, it's like they just go and visit, just like being as devotees everywhere. You have a feeling, so it's very blissful. The spirit is something like, if you have it like old days, or something like it was in New York when Prabhupada was first there. That's kind of the feeling I had. Very, very blissful. So anyhow, I spoke with them. I got all the material, the whole program, they gave to me. It's easy to just copy it, and you can also have it for me if you want. I got the whole material, and then we started a couple of groups in Denmark, translated the material into Danish, and then started running a couple of groups. And now we are where we have, we have almost finished one. It's called a round of the whole. It's actually the whole program is 64 weeks. We talk about we bring people through a 64 weeks program. We cannot do it half a year. Christians, I think Christians don't have much to teach people. We have a lot to teach people, bring up, and we have to bring up to the standard of actually, following something. It's not a big Christian consciousness, it's not a big belief. It's a practice. There are 4 religious principles. There's sightseeing. There's 16 rounds. There's a whole lifestyle. There's active service and so on. So it takes longer. But we follow or conduct a 64 weeks program. And now we are actually this evening, right now, at this moment, I think, or in 15 minutes, my wife, she will have a program at our place with week 54. And there will be, that's not so many in our group, because that's also one thing I've learned that, all the elements have to be there, and it has to, it doesn't take so much time, and one can still have a full-time job and like that, but also it does take some time, and it took a little more time than I expected. So we don't have the complete success of the program as possible, but we have like a group of 7 steadily who are attending. But it should be more. It should be more under normal circumstances. If one is really outgoing and volume when preaching, one should have a group of like 15 like that after these 64 rounds, and then a few of them already trained to start new groups themselves, and so the groups actually can divide nicely and start all over again. So that's kind of what I just to give some like an overall idea of what this is all about. And I want to then describe a little what the program is, complete program is, and what it, what the complete program is. I want to get an idea what it takes to run such a program, be part of such a program, and what it actually can do. Do you have any questions at this point? Susanne? No? Okay, good.
Yeah, maybe I'm wondering where you get the people to join your group.
Where do you get people to join the group? There are different situations. Like the Copenhagen situation is actually so many who are coming to the temple in general, particularly to the Sunday feast. We have like 70, 80, sometimes 100 guests every Sunday. And many of them come steadily, and they are always candidates. Actually, many of them want to practice Krishna consciousness, but there is no program. The temple is not a program for them, so they just remain passive. And then after some time, they disappear again. So we have no problem getting someone to who are candidates for that. And I'd say for many of us, just go through a list of all those who are somewhat in you might say, the fringe of Krishna consciousness. Doesn't mean they're not fringes. It's a terrible name. But the point is,
they're connected but loosely.
Yeah, because there's no. We don't have nothing to offer them. If the idea is to so-called join, means okay, you give up everything and you become brahmachari, brahmacharina, and you move your whole family into either a temple or other thing like that. How many can do that? In reality, it's 1 out of 1,000 people can do that. That does not mean that those others are not sincere. They actually sincerely want at one point to practice Krishna consciousness. Of course, if they're not cultivated, they lose their inspiration, and then they might again, then they might become real fringes. But really, they had the spark, the real desire to, full-time get into Krishna consciousness. But if you are, a family, man, woman, and children and job and all that, you cannot change your position. But it's also, and really it's not our philosophy, but the Tantra philosophy is to stay where we are, in whatever situation, just start practicing Krishna consciousness. But often because we don't have that vision, someone or other didn't get that, we lost that vision or didn't have it, or we thought that people have to change their lifestyle to become devotees. There are so many, so few actually have joined our program, and there's so many who actually could be part of it, but they're not being involved. So we have many candidates actually. But if you might be in a place where you completely, there's nothing, there's no one who have ever heard about Krishna consciousness like that, well, then also they have programs how to cultivate people. I can maybe speak about that in the end, but this material that Mita Venugopal and his wife have developed, there's also instructions how do you start a program from scratch. And also you can say it's like then you simply start interacting with the people where you're living, and you can start making some programs in your home, not Krishna conscious programs, but invite them to something. Anything, playing chess, or flying kites, or maybe more a little close related, vegetarian cooking course, or an evening of Indian music, or it could be anything. Just somehow And then some people are coming, and then next month you make a new, something else, invite the same people. And then after done that a few times, and you have someone who comes every time, and you get, it's a friendship with them, and they start liking you, then you make you can have a program one evening with now it's we have in Indian philosophy we have we're going to look at Bhagavad Gita, just and see if they're interested, and then if someone is interested in that, then you can take them to another even little more Krishna conscious program, and then if someone is still saying, then you start on the 64 programs, 64 weeks programs, without in the beginning telling anyone actually it's 64 weeks, because no one is going to dedicate themselves from the beginning. You know, you want to take part in the 64 weeks program, then no one's going to do that. So there's a gradual way of actually involving people like that.
Yes, I want to ask, are there some examples when it like spread, like the examples you gave were in Indian and Russian, so in Western context?
Yeah, I mean, London is a Western country, to some degree still in the community, but there are also British people.
They are involving people who are outside of
Yeah, there are also white-skinned people in that program there.
Okay.
Yeah.
In America, Taliban, because if you go on the internet, you can find the whole program on Taliban, the community of Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have something?
Yeah, I'm not aware of this, and they might have it. I mean, it's you know, these programs in one sense are not highly profiled. It's simply devotees, you know, in one sense, ordinary people who simply are practicing locally. So there might also be programs there, and there might also be sometimes programs where they call it Bhakti Riksha, and actually it's not Bhakti Riksha, it's a Namahata program. So I know there are places where they call it Bhakti Riksha, but these programs don't have all the elements, and therefore the Bhakti Riksha, this growing, expanding, doesn't happen. That's more like home programs. But I mean, I'm sure they're mainly experimenting with it in many places. More places than we are. You know, South America, they also doing some things. But again, I'm not familiar with it myself.
But there is also always some, like actually this success of these programs.
Yeah.
It always depends on how the temple authorities or yatra authorities, what kind of politics they have, what kind of.
No. I mean, of course, if the temples or local Eastern does not work against it, then it's of course nice, and if the support is even better. But the program actually doesn't depend on an already existing temple or the support of an existing temple.
I understand the point,
Yeah.
but the point is usually that the temple presidents, they want that people come to the temple. You understand?
Yeah.
So if you're acting separately, you should be quite strong.
Yeah, I mean, one point is actually the program, when there is an existing temple, integrates with the temple. And part of the program is that the devotees who are part of the groups must take part in the temple programs. You know, they have to go and every so often do some service, and they must take part in at least once a week they have to go to the temple to go to a class or a program. And actually you'll also see that Bhakti Riksha programs, when they become great assets for the temples, like in, again, London, I'm familiar with London. There in the manor now, is it once a month that the whole Bhakti Riksha program goes there? They just take all the Sunday feast, they do all the cooking, they do everything for the Sunday.
Yeah, at that point I would like that you show this good examples
Yeah.
of like coordination together.
Yeah.
Because sometimes happens that like this vision are like little bit different. So temple has his own needs. At the same time, there is quite strong community outside,
Yeah.
and there is no like coordination work together.
You see that, but there is no. It's not. In one sense, it's not two different programs. Bhakti Riksha and Temple. It's one thing. It's preaching Krishna consciousness. Bhakti Riksha brings a lot of people, cultivate a lot of people to become devotees, and they need services. And temples, as we know them, they are always short of someone to do services. So it's a perfect combination. Temple has a lot of service that needs to be done, but Bhakti Riksha has a lot of people who need to do service. So, of course, there might be some personal schisms between some leaders. That might be a problem. But the programs itself, or themselves, are not in conflict with each other. They complement each other. And actually, if you really look at it, and when it comes down to it, you see actually Bhakti Riksha is a very, complete program. When seen properly, then the temple becomes a part of the Bhakti Riksha program. Sometimes it's seen the other way around. I think that there's some problem in vision there. That one thinks that temple has different programs. There is a book distribution, and there's DD program, there's Hainam, Prasad distribution, and there's congregational program, and there are other programs. Temple sometimes look at it like that, and from us, that kind of cripples a little the development. As I see, it should be seen differently. It should be seen that it is a total congregation that has some programs. One of the programs is having a temple, and there are book distribution, and there are Hainams and other programs going on. But it's not. It's actually the temple is a part of a larger congregational program. It's not that the congregation is a subsection of the temple. You see the difference there?
No, I just want to.
So, but sometimes it can. There's sometimes some problems in.
But this question was: can you illustrate some good cooperation? Like you speak about, you illustrated this Bhakti Riksha programs.
Yeah.
But maybe you can give some illustration about good cooperation between.
So the London program is a good example. It's a good illustration because there you have devotees who come and every so often go and help with many services, both in Soho and in the manor, and take part in festivals, and they have sometimes they have do that once a month or something like that. They everyone from London gets up very early, like 2 o'clock in the morning. There's a bus that's waiting, and everyone drives to the manor, and they're there for the Mangalatik. Do that once a month, and then they stay for the whole morning program, like that. It's there they have a really good. Now they have a really good relationship and cooperation. And I know that the temples are, ecstatic about all the new people that are coming in. They also distribute books. The London program, Bhakti Riksha London program, was the second best group of distributing books last December marathon, actually, and they do it for the benefit of the temples. So it's both practical. You can see these programs work nicely together, and in principle, it's one program. It's actually the spreading of Krishna consciousness.
Have you heard about Sankarshan Das Prabhu?
Sure, Dan uses us sometimes.
No, he has this program like internet preaching.
He has internet preaching, yeah.
It somehow connects Bhakti Riksha.
It's
He's quite successful.
Oh, he's completely successful. He has like 10,000 people. That was several years ago. He's probably more now. He's our most successful internet preacher. Not precisely Bhakti Riks. I don't know if he also organizes his devotion Bhakti Riks. Mainly he cultivates through internet, and then he goes and visits all those that he are cultivating. He has made many devotees in that way.
Where is that?
Sandhya,
Yeah.
all over the world. Internet is all over the world. He's based in Austin, Texas.
So he just had contact with them through internet.
Yeah, he has a whole self-realization course on the internet. You can go on to what's it called, the ultimate self-realization.com, and there you can enter, and then you take a course that actually brings you reading through the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, and in the end you come out also as a fully practicing devotee. He started it because he wanted to sell books on the internet, Bhagavad Gitas, and then he found out in order to interest people, they have to be involved, so he tailored a course where the textbook is Bhagavad Gita, and then self-realization, and it's done very attractively, with all kinds of promises, improve your life, this course will give you what you've always been looking for. It's
Very successful.
it's very successful.
Especially in Baltic states. That is amazing.
Yeah, probably has many disciples there.
Yeah.
Yes, we have some of the disciples in Denmark also who visits us.
He's a spiritual master also.
Yeah. Probably so.
Okay.
Him and his wife, Saturday, and his wife, they travel together and they preach. Very nice devotees, strict devotees. So, but it's not precisely the Bhakti Riksa program, but it's very successful. And speaking about internet, as off the topic remark that we had this morning about all the evils of the internet. But if we are still addicted, we insist on someone or another being online, then we can do like Sankirtan and actually use it very constructively. It's very, one can actually preach, but also he follows up by actually personally visiting people. But it's also available. People writing questions get answered the same day. It's very demanding. I know he spends several hours a day just replying to people, but then it has all. But if he doesn't, again, once it's his personal contacts, but he's there for people, and that's any kind of preaching. Also, if you go to Bhakti Riksa, the leader has to be there for people that he's cultivating, that's one ingredient that is actually necessary. But the leader is there for the people, like a parent for the child, practically. Then one can have amazing success with the program. If you take a close look at what the Bhakti Riksa program is, it consists of different elements. If you have already developed Bhakti Riksa program, you can see that the basic units are the Bhakti Riksa groups themselves, which consist of a leader, and hopefully he has an assistant or someone who is a leader to be trained, or he has several who can be trained. And these groups, they meet once a week. And they are being overlooked by a leader who is a sector leader. And the sector leader has a responsibility for 3, 4, 5 groups that he is overseeing. The leaders of the groups, they are in constant contact with the sector leader. After each meeting, they have to send a report how did the meeting go, who attended, the participants, what are they, where are they at right now, and do they have some, are there any specific problems, and so he has to report like that. He can always ask questions if he has some problems or some philosophical questions he could not answer. And also the sector leader, he goes and his 4 or 5 groups, he goes and visits the meetings. He pays a visit. Generally each week he goes to one of his groups and he just goes there and takes part as one of the participants. He's just leaflet, he's just there basically observing how you're doing, and then afterwards he might give some feedback and support like that. And then each sector leader, if you have if the program is getting that big, then you have maybe 3, 4, 5 sector leaders, but then there's a circle leader. And depending on as the program grows, you put in more and more layers. So ultimately there's a program leader on top, and he has 3, 4, 5 leaders that he deals with, who have 3, 4, 5 leaders, who have 3, 4, 5 leaders, down to the groups.
So if you started this in Denmark, are you then part of some other network, or is it so that you started something else and you will eventually end up...
I report to the devotees in London.
In London?
Yeah, I try to work under the devotees in London and report and have them to come and see what we're doing. It's very important to have this close contact. It's just one just get a lot of knowledge and a lot of support. It's a way to get one is just there to support the leaders, which means that one does not have to. There's always experience. Whatever the situation one is in, whatever problem one has, whether someone already knows what we do in that situation, so you can always ask, and you don't have to reinvent what others have already developed. It's all there, and that makes it actually very easy. In one sense, it makes it very easy. One doesn't have to experiment. One actually just has to follow, and the better one follows. Of course, there's always some application and some detail like that, but basically, the better one follows, the more success one will actually have. So that's like the overall structure of the whole program. Then if you take a particular group, the life of a Bhakti Vriksha group, because this is where the real program is going on. As I said, there are different elements of the group or of the program that the group takes part in. And most important is that there's a weekly meeting. There's a weekly meeting where everyone takes part. It takes like 2 hours, and if the prasadam is very good and everyone's relaxed, it might take 3.5 hours because everyone just hangs around and talks afterwards. This generally happens at our place. We just talk, but it doesn't have to be. It's structured so it can be all done within like 2 hours, because we're all dealing with people who are busy, don't have that much time. And there is the members come and then they follow a particular program where we can actually have it here. Here's the program. These papers here are the papers of the leader, and here it's actually described how you should conduct this particular meeting, what you should do, how long does each part of the meeting take, and so on. It is like this. There is, let's see. This. Is it mixed up a little bit?
You can't read it anyway.
No, but I want to pass around. Nevertheless, for you just to still get an idea what is.
Janice, are you reporting to somebody or are you just experimenting?
No, this is fair.
We should go into report.
It's actually a good idea to. I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that we could do that more serious. Definitely.
You could report to me actually. You could put a few reports.
Yeah, I was thinking either you or in England.
Yeah.
Because they have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I didn't print out the full, so you can see. But anyway, the leader has this material, and then here there is some papers which all the participants are getting. So everyone who comes, they get these and to read from and discuss from.
We do that.
We do that also, yeah. So, and actually, the text which on the members' paper are also on the, of course, on the leaders' papers, but then in between the instructions on how he conducts a particular meeting.
Like a teacher's manual.
Teacher's manual. So, the first thing about this kind of meetings is, again, it's not a lecture. It's not the leader. He's place everyone in front of him on the rows on the floor, and then he gives a lecture. It's a very interactive kind of meeting where everyone, first of all, sits in a circle. It's important that everyone sits in a circle so everyone can see each other, and there should be no one sitting behind, hiding that everyone cannot see. Everyone we have to see each other to make it closer. And then the first thing we have, first element is just a kind of a light called icebreaker, called satsanga, but also icebreaker. It's just a kind of question or an activity or something that we do together just to break the ice. And there's there can be a question, like the first meeting is just a presentation, present yourself, what's your name, and so on. That's everyone gets to speak, and then afterwards there are other sometimes some funny questions, or even some, but also some little personal questions. You tell something about yourself, or what is your favorite interest, and these kind of questions are there in the beginning. And as the program goes on, it becomes a little more also philosophical, and for a period it's actually tell what you read from about Prabhupada. For quite a long time, everyone has told homework, read something from Prabhupada, and then when you come, you tell, I read this, I read this. And the idea is so everyone speaks and loosens up, so we get to know each other. That's the first part.
Often this is very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
We had meetings where we just spoke about this for 2 hours.
Yeah, the leader has to control this. This actually should not happen.
I know.
But it's very nice actually. It creates such a nice, and just to sit down with devotees actually and just talk, and it becomes very Krishna conscious. This is actually what the Krishna consciousness movement is about, isn't it? Everything else we're doing, big projects, preaching, it's just actually to come to that point where we're sitting with devotees and just talking. So it's actually, we have the essence of Krishna consciousness, just sitting with devotees and discuss like that. And but this kind of icebreaker should be controlled by the leader. Sometimes I still have a watch and I give everyone a minute or 2 minutes, and you talk, and then when you think bing bing, stop, next. Like a little straight, because otherwise it can take, one can spend the whole evening. And that's, the other parts of the program are very important for the program to really start rolling. After that, there's a kirtan in front of the altar. There should be an altar in the home. So we have a kirtan in a short kirtan, 10 minutes, something like that. During the kirtan, everyone offers either incense or a flower on the altar. It's important to get everyone in the habit of offering. It's a part of the tradition. Then after that, everyone chants around together, one round. We read a small passage from Srimamrita, next to the holy name, just to inspire us for chanting, and then we sit and chant together a full round, 108 Hare Krishna mantras together. Very powerful. I mean, we've done in our groups, or also the groups that we had started 10 years ago. We did that. I know my job has improved incredibly just from sitting down with others and chanting like that. And everyone has an experience, nice experience, good chanting. So then after one round of japa, then we have a philosophical discussion, and this is on this paper here, text from somewhere in Prabhupada's books, structured to whatever level the group is on. In the beginning it's very basic philosophy, but then it becomes more and more advanced, progresses on and on. And the way it's structured is that everyone said to the paper, you start reading, the leader asks you, can you start reading this? So you read one paragraph, and you stop, and then he reads the next paragraph, he reads the next paragraph, he reads the next paragraph, until we read the text. And then after that, you can give everyone, you might give everyone a few minutes just to look at the text and study the questions which are after the text. There's a number of questions. Or you don't may not, we really actually don't do that, because the first questions are a number of questions which are discovery questions. You simply have to go into the text and look where is the answer to this question, and you just read out, here says this and this and this. Then the next group of questions, which are called understanding questions, which are also directly related to the text. So you should go and find where this is stated, but then you should expand this on your own understanding also, but also to the topic. And then and then there is an application question called the application, and that's also a general question based on the text, where everyone should reply to this question. The other questions we take rounds. Now you should answer this question, and maybe also you say something, and maybe you also can add something. But then when you finish, then you take the next question, like this. But the last question, everyone has to answer. It's a personal question about, there's different, of course here we are quite much into the program. I said this is week 53, I have here. And actually it has, here the text we've been reading has been about the balance between proper behavior and preaching. Because it starts with a quote by Sanatana Goswami, who's praising Haridas Thakur, that you're the greatest devotee in the world, because some behave nicely, but they don't preach, but others preach, but they don't behave completely correctly. But you do both, and definitely the greatest devotee. So then there's some text about actually, proper behavior and preaching, and how to find the balance and so on. And then, so the application question then is that share your experiences with preaching to others, and how was your behavior, what were the reactions you got, and how would you like to improve your preaching and your behavior. Okay. You say something, you get a couple minutes, next like that. And then it becomes very interesting. And everyone learns a lot from each other, and also one becomes quite introspective when one has to answer questions like this. And so after that, then there is a preaching session, which actually is the most important part of the program. Often it happens that one doesn't do that, or it's in the end and one has to, so one rushes through it, but actually that is what makes the whole program dynamic. There's a passage, a quote from somewhere in Prabhupada's books. Somewhere Prabhupada writes about preaching and spreading Krishna consciousness. We have to bring people to Krishna consciousness, and people are suffering and so on. You know, it's focus on preaching. And then, well, in the beginning, the program is that the new members are not being pushed immediately to go and preach. But so in the beginning, it's kind of really soft, and it's just talk about preaching, and you know, this is some knowledge that should be given to others. But then after some weeks, then different simple kinds of preaching are being, you know, they've been asked to take part in that. Not on their own to begin with. The leader will ask them to join him, and for example, go and visit. There's someone who is interested in maybe joining our group. Do you want to come and visit? Come along, and we go and speak with him. Take people out like that. And the preaching is also that point. The preaching is not just general preaching, but it's geared towards bringing others to join the group, inviting others to come and be part of the group. That's the preaching. And but then, as you know, as the weeks goes on, they being asked to do it more and more on their own, and also take part in other kinds of preaching programs. So actually, if it's done properly, in the end, you have, you know, the leader. He just sits back and the weekly meeting, he just asks, so how was your preaching? How was your preaching? He doesn't do anything himself. That's the idea.
I have difficulty to understand how a newcomer in 64 weeks can become so mature that they can take responsibility for me.
Yes.
And
It's quite amazing. And that, how this happens is because another part of the program is called the Shiksha program. And the lessons that everyone's going through is actually structured to bring the members up through the Shiksha program. Shiksha program is a program where members or aspiring devotees take vows to follow some principle. In the beginning, actually, it's the first 10 weeks are meant to bring the members to take the level of the Strata, we call it the Strata vow, where they will, and that day when this is being presented, I mean, it's the whole 10 weeks been leading up to this, and then one evening, we don't have a regular meeting, we have a special presentation about this Strata vow, trying to inspire everyone to commit themselves to Strata. And Strata means I commit myself to, I'll chant one round every day, and I'll take regular part in this Bhakti program. Until then, it's quite a little uncommitted. But here we try to have people commit themselves, actually come every week and chant one round. So that's the first level. Then another 10 weeks, there's a next level which is called Krishna Sevak. Krishna Sevak. And there, members are asked to commit themselves to chanting 4 rounds a day and not eat meat. Not become. You see, actually, principles not being pushed on them. You actually, only after 20 weeks we ask them to become vegetarian. Others like men that come before, but it's not really being asked. But here they've been asked, take the vow of not eating meat, no fish, no meat, eggs or fish. And and also start doing a little service. Somehow, if there's temple, do some service, or commit yourself. Then after 30 weeks, the Krishna Sadhaka level is being introduced, where members are being asked to commit themselves to chant 8 rounds and to follow 3.5 regulated principles. That means no sexual relationships outside of marriage, and the other principles full. And then they are asked to I think actually go more or less from 8 to 16 rounds next time, where it's called the Prabhu's. It's actually the Prabhu's Raya level. And then the last level and that goes on from week 50 until 64. There they actually are practicing on they actually at that time aspiring, preparing themselves to take initiation. So it's quite drastic. But if it's done, the program is practiced fully. They actually aim to bring quite many up to that level in those 64 weeks. But they also, but of course there are other elements of the program which helps them a lot. There's a Shiksha program which is directed towards bringing them up. They should not remain on the same level. The members should not just come and week after week and month and year after year just sit passively and listen to a lecture and go home. They've been pushed a little. And often the way it's done is, if the leader is good at it, he doesn't push them, but he creates a little competition between them so they push themselves to advance. So if that spirit is created where they start, like friendly competitions, doesn't become, but it's just friendly competition, then they actually start advancing quite nicely. Then to bring them, maybe Martin, you have something?
No, I was just wondering if you have a group and then somebody is willing to take this level and the others are not, do you continue with the same people?
They're fine. They're not. It's completely voluntary, and those who do not want to take the level, they can stay. They can continue chanting the 4 rounds, even though the others are on the 8 rounds like that, and no one. That's been completely respected. This is what they aim to do, and everyone is fine with that. They continue that, and everyone is fine with that also.
And actually, I was thinking when you asked that question, it's the other way around. When Prabhupada started the movement, he gave devotees responsibility, and when the movement was very new, there were a few devotees, and they were the Sankirtan leaders. But then when you have very many devotees and very many guests, there is not enough responsibility to go around, and this actually creates a nice way for people to have a responsibility, because you grow with your responsibility.
And it's part of it to involve them both in preaching and also taking over part of just running the practical of this weekly meeting. In the beginning the leader, he has to do everything, but in the end he's just be sitting back, and they are doing all the practical things. The members, they're cooking the prasad, they're cleaning after, like that. That's how it should be, like that. Plus, the weekly meetings are not the only program. I said there's a Shiksha, which is, of course, that's goal-oriented towards bringing people up to the higher levels. And then, besides that, every so often there's also organized what they call it a Vyuha program. Vyuha means groups. But it's a program, it's kind of a public program, where not only one group, but several of the Bhakti groups, if you have several groups in the same area.
Is it a
Vyuha?
It's a something program.
It's a public. Definitely, it's a public program where they, all the members of different groups organize some kind of a public program, can rent a hall or organize it in the temple. And then they can invite a guest to come and speak. And if someone wants to play music, they can perform some music or some dance or whatever. And then they try to invite people to come and take part in the public program. so they get some experience with organizing public programs. And also, every few months there's either the leader or some of the members are asked to organize either like a weekend tour or a kind of a picnic or somewhere where everyone just gets together during the day or even stay over the weekend somewhere. And then they just do Krishna conscious activities together. We were in Malmö a couple of months ago from Copenhagen, stayed overnight, and we went over there, all the Bhaktivinodas, we were 20. Then we had Heiner, we met the devotees in Malmö. We had, in the evening, there was some prasadam, lecture, and we slept with, I think I slept with Mangaramata Chita's place, didn't we, some of us? And in the morning, there was a lecture, Manila was there, gave a lecture, and we had prasadam, and then we talked a little more about Bhakti-Vriksha, and then we went back. And everyone was together, and it was fun, and like that. So, I want you to arrange something, where everyone just are doing things together. And then also, I know in London what they do, they organize japa marathons every Ekadashi, where everyone meets. I mean, I'm not able to put aside every Ekadashi, but it's extremely powerful. Invite all the members, for example, to the temple, if there's a temple, and on Ekadashi, we just chant. We chant 64 rounds. We chant 72 rounds. There's some who actually chant 108 rounds on Ekadashi. I've never chanted so much, and they completely brand new people who don't even chant, or want to chant one round like that. But that day, okay, let's get up and just chant and chant and chant. And the result is of these japa marathons, and afterwards you get such a taste, and the experience actually, 64 rounds is nothing. We can easily chant that. So to chant 8 rounds, and so it really brings them up to chant, or also quickly up to chant 16 rounds. So they actually, arranging some nice programs to get people into a lot of chanting.
You mentioned that on the normal meetings, it's not like a normal temple program. It's what kind of activities do you? I mean, it's not a lecture.
No, I think I just went through it. There's the icebreaker. Everyone says something. Kirtan, japa, one chant in one round. There is a discussion-based reading from a text, and then a discussion with questions where everyone answers. The leader kind of draws out the answers from the members, and there's a final question everyone has to kind of be introspective and really start, think about to answer this question. This is of course related to the text. The leader afterwards also he gives his answer and adds something and instructs everyone there. And then there's a preaching session where we talk about how to preach, how to get more people to come, and how did it go last week. And then in the end, there's prasadam. I didn't get to that, but everyone sits down and takes some prasadam. Prasadam can be simple, depending on the situation. It should not be a strain for those who arrange for the program. It should not be a feast actually. At our place, we make khichdi. Everyone gets khichdi. And someone brings something also. They can do that also. That's actually the weekly program. Yeah.
I have a doubt I would like to be relieved from. And this is because I can see that the structure of this, there are some cell sects, you can call them cell sects. They use exactly the same structure, and I was manipulated into, or I sensed, I already understood that it was something like that. So I went along with it because I wanted to know what it was, because they would not say what this meeting was about to be, about.
I tried to, who are you, who are organized? No, we will just have this meeting is nothing. It's just come, But and they would not, and I knew this is something, So, you get to, if you sense this, you feel very manipulated. And it's not nice. And I would not like to join people when they get the feeling of being manipulated.
No. So, but that's just your own,
That is my
the leader has to have a natural sensitivity to not give that feeling to people. And of course, it's not a problem when we just add members from who visitors to Timber like that. We do a Hare Krishna program. And if you are starting from scratch just trying to attract brand new people, I mean, I haven't tried it. Others have tried it. I haven't tried it. I would say that you don't have to hide your Hare Krishna. You don't even have to hide you have an intention, or you can even say we run a program like that. Now we just have another program like that. And, I say devotees are just ourselves naturally very open. We're not trying to hide anything, but also we're not trying to, just overstuff people with more than they can take, because sensitive, I don't know if there will be that problem. I don't know.
I just know that Swedish people are quite sensitive of this.
Yeah.
I think here one will be much more successful. Just lay the whole thing from the beginning. Otherwise, after a while, they will sense.
Yeah.
They are brought into something that is actually a little manipulative. And I don't know.
But is it manipulative?
Yes,
I mean,
it is. If you don't, when you bring them, they don't know what you are, going to bring them to from the start. That is manipulation.
No, but if you have a core group,
It's not a bad thing from my side. It's not a bad thing.
No.
But the thing is, the Swedish people don't like this. I don't think, isn't it?
but I think there's a difference.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference if you are cultivating people who are more or less part of your general group, or if you're alone in a city in a foreign country and you don't know anyone, and then you start to bring them you offer some cake for your birthday or some chess. And then eventually, when you have a relationship, then you say, oh, now we also have this Indian philosophy. Then, because how can you say, if somebody you don't know, you don't walk up to them on the street and say, hey, we are neighbors, why don't you join for a 64-week program? Because you have to first have a relationship.
It just has to be done sensitive.
Yeah. One has to be genuine. One has to, actually, very much in the Bhakti preaching is that you first establish friendships before you really start preaching to them.
It has to be true friendship.
Yes.
Not be friendship because you want something else.
No, it has to be genuine
Oh.
friendship,
Yeah.
true friendship.
Yeah.
So that means you have to be genuine yourself. You have to be genuine yourself. But I'd say that goes for any kind of preacher. Preaching is only successful when this preacher is actually genuine and genuinely is interested in people that he's cultivating and is actually really like their friend.
I just got into this because I had this experience, and I noticed that the structure was the same. So then I thought,
Yeah. It is because it is a successful structure.
Yes.
It works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and there might also be some envious people who are criticizing the structure because it's successful, and they are, trying to.
My question is this is structure, but actually how different youth, grihastas or older people's this group of interests actually there should be some because if I read this Bhakti Vriksha group, it's like in one group can be young people's, in other can be olders.
They actually advise that you should not, you should basically mix the groups with different kinds of people.
Should one mix?
Yeah, they advise like that. I mean, I was just in London about a month ago where Prima Patni was there, and she was asked that precise question. And she advised not to divide the groups according, this is a group for young, this is a group for old, and this is a group, it's actually, they should be nicely mixed.
Why?
I guess that, well, it just creates a nice mix. You have some who have some maturity, so you have some young who are fresh, you have some maybe intellectual, you have some who are more simple person. See, it creates a kind of, it's a nice family atmosphere. The whole program it's a very, you have to create a very nice family atmosphere in the groups.
There is good examples of preaching to these direct groups, because this preaching is, like for example the same Jayapataka Swami Maharaj.
Yeah.
He came one time to the temple, and he starts to make. He put only young peoples, and he started to make japa championships. Who can breathe out more japa? Like he makes like that, and then Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Krishna. And he made like 12 times. I was able like 5 or 6 or something, and we was doing this for 2 hours, and only young peoples, and it was and there is all the same, like we yesterday was singing this choir singing.
Chorus.
Yeah, no, chorus singing. Actually, this is done like 20 years before. This choir singing, you know, and also the young peoples, and quite successful. No, of course, the problem is that the leaders or the preachers was not, lack of qualities. It's not long, but this attractiveness, this was, and they can lot of young people they can. Only because it's the way, how preaching way, all these Japa championships or something like that, it's not acceptable for some more mature. This is therefore I ask.
And I mean, again, I'm not so experienced. I can say. I mean. Well, our groups that we've had going has been pretty mixed. I found it's nice. We have some, like, even a little older people. Actually, nice to have. Gives like a calm to the whole, you know, to the whole place. And nice to have young people who are enthusiastic and men, women.
Maybe you do some maybe extra festivals for some,
Yeah. But we're not targeting. I mean, it's sometimes we have the idea we should target young people, especially. Just my personal thing. I think we might find quite beneficial, actually, not only focus, but actually to get targeted, because there are many old people who can, become just as Krishna conscious and want to become devotees, and who actually can have quite much to contribute with just from their experience of life. That's just my personal take on it. I like to attract all kinds of people.
Actually, 2 questions. Just one simple. When you have this meeting, you are not in devotional clothes.
Yeah.
You are.
But it's up to the people. Members can come in devotional clothes and they cannot.
Yeah.
At one point they had to start to learn how to be in devotional clothes. They had to learn how to put on tilak. There's actually, there's also, at one point there are some lectures, special lectures outside the meeting in training in the devotional practices and also in this particular study in Bhagavad Gita. There's a more in-depth studies of Bhagavad Gita also. But the idea is, in the end, everyone should come up and, just be dressed like devotees.
This Is it possible that in the middle of the 64 weeks you take newcomers, or is it just...
Yeah, you can accept newcomers quite. Up in at least halfway through, and sometimes even more. But then you have to, give them a little, outside the meeting training and explain what it's about. And if it's someone who has actually is not new to Christian consciousness and known Christian consciousness for some years and wants to be part of, they can even enter it at a somewhat later stage. But at one point, of course, brand new people, after a certain point, then they cannot take part.
So maybe you have already explained that, I came a little late, but you mentioned something about that these people, they get support from some Shiksha group. What does it mean?
Shiksha group, now there's a Shiksha program. It's actually the whole meetings are structured to so everyone is brought up through the Shiksha program, the different levels of commitment.
So this is not separate.
It's not separate from the meetings. The meetings are even the material that's done, the text we're reading are bringing them up through the different two levels of commitment. And every 10 weeks there's a special seminar. Instead of a normal meeting, it's a seminar by the leader or someone else who comes, and he gives a lecture on why one should chant one round, why one should not eat meat and like that. And then in the end, they ask, would you like to commit yourself? And actually, those who commit themselves, they'll officially take vows, either that meeting or in the next Sunday feast or festival, and they'll get a certificate, and everyone will say, Jai, hi ho, and like that.
Is that type Maharaj?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, he does that. They do that in many places. And it means, it's quite, that you take a vow in front of all the devotees like that. Actually, you take something serious, it becomes very serious for people. That's the idea behind initiation. And this is also the idea about this, okay, so now we really have to promise. So, yeah. Things like that. Anyway, I'm still on the experimental stage myself.
This is your first round.
First round that we're going through here.
How far you said you were 54?
Tonight, right now, my wife is conducting week 54.
Yeah.
In our home. And there's 64. So there's like 2.5 months left over, then we have to start new groups. We already planned for how to start new
Can you already now say that after the 64 weeks some will be initiated?
After this, we have one of them is different. He already has one state initiation from Sankashan. Others are, one also, she's probably not completely ready after 64 weeks, but she's chanting 16 hours to my mothers also. Then we have one little older gentleman. He's not ready. He's for many years been on 4 hours, and he's still on 4 hours.
But he doesn't feel that pressure.
No. He actually likes it, some pushing, but also his respect that he does what he can do and is willing to do. But actually he likes that he's been pushed in a way he's not tried to be pushed before. And who knows if after, if he starts all over again, then in the end of one more round, maybe then he can, or maybe he can get the thing is, he has his wife, and she's not into Krishna consciousness. She's not against, actually supporting him, and she's happy that he goes to this meeting, and he likes it, and he has a service, sometimes he does some translation, so then she helps him translate properly, so, it's not a conflict, but somehow she's not hasn't become interested yet. If she could become interested, then it could become dynamic. And very often it's put quite an endeavor into, if you have one of a couple, to get the other couple interested in a not in a pushy way, in a nice way, just to. And some of these, for example, picnics are when they are organized, then they invite also the spouses, and then and these picnics then should be just kind of relaxed and fun and nice to be with. Nothing fanatical, no heavy preaching, just a nice atmosphere, so they get confidence in devotees, and then also it's all that the spouse should not preach to his or her partner. Some other devotees should explain to them like that. So it's.
Do you translate into Swedish when you have this?
I wanted to do that because there are some devotees who would like to be part of it if we had it in Swedish. So one could have another group in Swedish and one group in English.
Yeah.
But so far I didn't have time. But this year I may have more time.
Because I don't have jobs sometimes. So it's good. We have two groups in Danish and one in English. That's how we can do it. And as I said, you should not divide according to age and like that. But it's important to divide according to language, it seems like. Because to speak in your own language makes a difference. But then again, if you cannot have to speak in English or something, that's also okay actually. It's the association with devotees is the main thing. What brings everyone, makes everyone progress. But if you can find time to translate to English, that's so much into Swedish, so much of it. Okay. Should we stop here? Okay. Thank you for this simple presentation.
It's very interesting.
Yes. Yeah. Shri Prabhupada.
Yeah.